I expect like morale is going to go way up, right? Like I basically expect that the merge is going to be kind of not priced in, by which I mean like not even just like market terms, but even just kind of like psychological narrative terms. Like pretty
careful
much
with that word.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like in kind of like in narrative terms, I think it's not going to be priced in like pretty much until like after it happens. Like there's like we see even the longer term future of the Ethereum protocol, and my hopes that we do the upgrades that we have to do, but also don't normalize like just constantly adding more and more features, because that'll like make the protocol super complicated after like 20 years. So. Yeah, just kind of thinking about, what is the vision for the medium term, what's the vision for the long term, how can we make sure that we sort of shift gears into like actually valuing decentralization more, and like, not just as a slogan, but like as something that gets a lot of development effort. Ethereum software, and like you're finally getting to the point where the system actually will be able to, handle the just incredibly massive amount of usage that like an actual, quote, mainstream adoption cycle is going to demand.
So say what you will about what's your take on the rate of development of not just like the app layer, but actually like straight up the Ethereum protocol? Like, are we getting faster at this?
I think it's like both faster and slower. Like I do think that our results have been pretty mixed so far, right? Because if you compare the process of getting the beacon chain out the door to the process of getting ETH 1.0 out the door, like the ETH 1.0 took 20 months, right? From like myself writing the first version of the white paper to launch. Like here, like we're looking at a merge that will take like maybe about 22 months or 21 months after the original launch of the beacon chain. And of course, the original launch of the beacon chain itself happened after a development process. Sharding's still taking a while. Things like account abstraction are taking a while. EIP, but on the other hand, like EIP 1559, that's something that was like a huge economic reform, and it's one that's had like actually pretty very significant consequences, right? That's been great for fee stability, it's been great for fast inclusion, it's been great for lots of things. But that took like 3 years to get through, but now it's finally there, right? So I think there's kind of these two opposing pressures that we as a community have to deal with, where one is, right, like when Ethereum launched, it did not have like this massive ecosystem of block explorers and like side infrastructure that the beacon chain has already. So I think like both of those pressures exist, and like to some extent that's healthy, and like to some extent this actually gets into stuff that I'm going to talk about in this presentation, which is that I think it's like healthy for Ethereum to have a bit of a move fast and break things attitude, like specifically over the next couple of years, because like we do need to radically change stuff, right? Like switching the consensus algorithm, moving over to sharding, moving over to like a very different model for how transactions get included. But at the same time, there's kind of this longer term desire where we do want L1 to kind of settle down into something that's like very stable, independent, and it's like it's not something that kind of wins by outmaneuvering the alternatives. It's something that wins by outlasting the alternatives.
Certainly.
Yeah, and so it's I guess we're both doing all of the good work that needs to be done to kind of get through all of these kind of big stages at the beginning, and at the same time, like there's also this question of like how do we properly set ourselves up for this longer term future where the layer 1 starts to become this a bit of a more static thing, and the improvements are more incremental, they're more kind of technical and safety oriented. And once that happens, then, Ethereum will just get slower, and that's fine, right? But then, layer 2 work is only gonna get faster, I think. Hard to tell because you have to, like, distinguish between sort of, like, forced high morale, where everyone kind of realizes that, they are the elites, and if they present an attitude of low morale, the whole thing breaks, and so they gotta have to kind of, keep up everyone else's spirits, versus, like, genuine, really high morale. And I do think we have had periods of the first kind, right?
Sure.
Like, a lot of that time in 2018 and 2019 maybe, the time around like the DAO fork and the DOS attacks. There have been definitely periods where people have been kind of disappointed by slow progress, but now I think it's definitely like all genuine. And it's the merge is like looking more and more in the front view mirror, and it's looking more and more like, hey, this thing is going to actually happen. And once the merge actually happens, then
What would you say are the biggest lessons that we've learned in the app layer in 2021?
right. I mean, I think one of the big lessons for the community has been around the kind of stablecoin and Luna stuff.
Sure.
Like, I think we actually got to a point where what we might call principles-based thinkers kind of got a bit demoralized, right? Because if you're a principles-based thinker, then you're going to say anything that offers more than 10% APY is like basically unsustainable at best, a scam at worst, because nothing in fiat lands can stably offer 10% returns with like very low risk of losses. So why the hell do we think the crypto space can do better, especially given that there isn't really kind of much of a real economy backing up those growth rates? But at the same time, in 2020, 2021, we just saw this kind of ongoing, yield farming craze, and you just regularly get 90% APYs on yield farming, USDC or whatever, and it just kept on getting crazier. And that's demoralizing, right? Because I think a lot of people even started thinking wait, okay, maybe we're in a new paradigm, and maybe this whole sanity and logic thing actually is just a fiat world Web 2 prejudice. And then, boom, and Luna suddenly taught people that oh no, principles actually do matter, and we actually do live in reality. Never really joined this kind of enthusiastic desire to get a Bitcoin or an Ethereum ETF because I think
we're not ready for it.
Yeah, to some extent, and I think. In these phases, crypto kind of deserves to have a longer period of time, and needs to have a longer period of time during which it is an ecosystem where this is the frontier, this is the West, and I don't know all of those.
I've heard this before.
Indeed. This is not financial advice. You can lose everything that you put in, and all of that. And once you start kind of plugging it into mainstream infrastructure where funds representing random 72-year-olds start throwing money into this stuff by default, then you're just entering a different ballgame. And that's not really a ball game that we should be trying to enter that quickly. Sure. Basically, if you have to choose between kind of two regulatory evils, where one of those evils is, regulators coming in and telling the industry what it can and can't do, and the other one is the crypto industry gets freedom, but it gets firewalled off of, reality, then, I choose the second over the first, any day. Right. And so fortunately, I think, Luna broke before it managed to kind of get to that level of scale where it really started kind of, jumping outside of the firewall. But it's... even still, the collapse kind of reminded people that, yes, reality matters, that yes, fundamentals matter, yes, principles matter, yes, this thing that you're throwing your money into that promises 6% returns and has been consistently giving you 6% returns for the last 2 years might actually be something that's worth getting out of. And that's good that we learned those lessons. What kinds of problems people are working on, what kinds of things people think are solving, and what kinds of solutions people think are important. So I think kind of it's good to get that, but we also don't want to get too much of that.